Hi, welcome back to SOC279, the Prelab. Today we're going to talk about some of the things that you're going to need to do in SPSS for the next part of your project. So let's dig right in. I already have SPSS running on my machine, so I'm actually going to do a screen share and I'm going to stop the video, but you should still be able to hear me. All right, so what we are doing today is we're going to start doing the commands in SPSS that you're going to need for your term project, okay? If you remember, we are working with the variable ft_t. And what this is it's a feelings thermometer item from the ANES data set. And essentially what it is it's a question that asks respondents, how do you feel about the Tea Party? Very low scores were, 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Those were associated with low or cold feelings towards the Tea Party, and higher scores, ranging, up, 90, 95, 100, those indicated low scores for the Tea Party. And so if you remember from the course project instructions, my question is what are the factors that are associated with support for the Tea Party? Or what factors influence support for the Tea Party? I've chosen 3 independent variables and 1 social group variable. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you how to work with them to get the frequency distributions that I'm going to need for a mini project too. All right, so if you remember, when you launch SPSS, you should have something that looks like this. This is the data view. You can tab back and forth between data view and variable view. I also am a big fan of using the syntax, so I'm going to generate syntax for this in case I ever need to come back to it, okay? So this window that we had open, this is our output window. This is where everything that we do in SPSS will appear after we do it. All right, so I'm going to start with a few notes to myself in the syntax window. I'm going to start with a star so that SPSS knows not to try to run any of what I'm about to say. All right, so my dependent variable is ft_t. All right, and then my independent variables are going to be political party identification. And if I remember off the top of my head, that is PID_X. That's the name of that variable. All right. I have another variable that I'm interested in. This is the informed individuals item. And I'm actually going to score this as 1 and 0. But I'm going to need to recode an item for this. I'm not sure, but I think it is the news week items. Okay. And then I have another independent variable, which is I need to start that with a star. Another independent variable would be levels of SES, and actually in the instructions, that one is second. SES. Low versus high, maybe. Okay. And then the last variable is my social group or control variable. We're going to use ideology. This is liberal versus conservative. Now that ideology variable, that's called, the variable actually is libconself, and it is based, I think it's a 7 scored item. So I'm going to need to do something with that. I'll probably recode into liberal versus conservative. All right. So this is how I'm going to start. these are just some notes I made to myself. Once I have the data set open, I can begin with, I'm going to actually just start with the frequencies so that I can figure out which variables it is that I am interested in. So I go up to Analyze, Descriptives, and Frequencies. And if I'm trying to remember which one SES is. It's something like, it's dem underscore SES maybe. There's educational group, employment status. I think I'm going to stick right now with education, just because it's easy and it's right there. So I'm going to do create a frequency distribution of dem underscore edu group. Okay, I'm going to run it. All right. So dem underscore edu group is a 5-category item where 1 has less than high school and 5 is graduate degree. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm probably going to want to recode this. I want to have some type of high SES versus low SES. And for me, you know, I'm just going to probably set that cut point at college. All right, so we'll make a new dichotomous item where people who are scored 4 and 5, they will be one group, and people who are 1, 2, and 3 will be another group. All right, so how we're going to do that is we're going to go up to transform, okay, and we're going to compute a variable. I'm just kidding. We're not going to compute a variable. We are going to recode into different variables. All right. Now, once you get here, you're going to have to tell SPSS what it is that you want to do. All right. For us, we want to use dem underscore edu group. We got to find it. I guess it would help if I displayed alphabetically. Dem underscore edu group. That is the variable that we used up here, as you can see. And we're going to make a new variable out of it, okay? But we're going to call this one dem underscore edu, and we're going to go call it re. Okay, this lets us know that this is a recode of the dem underscore group item. And just for easiness sake, I'm gonna use the same exact variable name, dem underscore edu group, dem underscore edu group, and then we're just adding the RE at the end. And the label part, I'm just gonna call it recode of edu group. Okay, so now I have all the new values. And this is where I have to look at the old values of the old variable and then tell SPSS what I want to call those in the new variable, okay? So if you remember, we had, we wanted to put the people who were coded as 1, 2, and 3. So these are people who are less than high school education, a high school education, and some post-high school or no bachelor's degree. We're going to put all of them into one group. But their values in the original item are 1, 2, and 3. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tell SPSS, everybody who's coded 1 through 3, we're going to code them in this new item as, I could do anything here. I could do it as 0, I could do it as 1, I could do it as 2, whatever. I'm going to choose 0 because then I'm going to, by choosing 0, that means that all the people who have sort of lower educational status will be coded as 0s. And then if I go back and I do this again for the other group, I'll code them all as 1s. So this new item is going to be basically everybody who has a bachelor's degree and a graduate degree, they're going to be 1. Everybody else will be 0. All right. Now I'm also going to say a range 4 through 5, and they're going to be coded as 1. Okay, and every time I do that, I got to hit the add button so it comes into this box. Now, I could have gone another way. I could have decided to make I could have just done value for value. So I could have done 0 and made this 1, and then done this again and gone 1 to 2, 2 to 3, however I wanted to do it. There's lots of different ways to do it, and it's kind of one of those things that you won't really understand until you actually start doing it. I could also have gone with the range to the lowest value. So I might have said everything that is up to 3. So here I might have gone the lowest. This tells SPSS I want to have all the range here, the lowest through value whatever. So if I said 3 here, then everything that was coded as everything that was 1, 2, or 3 would all get coded whatever I tell it to over here, okay? Or I could have said everything above a certain number would be a certain number in the new item. So if I said everything above a 2 here, the new value, if I made this a 1, this would say that the value through the high, so 2 through the highest would be another number. Okay, so that's kind of the other end of that distribution. I don't want to do that today, but one thing I am going to do is I'm going to have the system missing over here, which is all of these people down here, missings. I want them to be missings in this new data set. Okay, so I'm telling SPSS on the old item, if it's missing, make it missing on this new item. If it was a 1, a 2, or a 3 on the old item, we're going to make it a 0 on this new item. And if it was a 4 or a 5 on the old item, we're going to make it a 1 on this new item. Okay? Once I do that, I hit continue. Now, you'll see that I don't really have there's nothing for me to do here. What I have to do is I have to come in here and hit change. Once I do that, I get the option to hit OK. All right? And you'll know because you'll have this little box up here will change. It'll let you know here's the variable that you're basing it on, and here's going to be the new variable that you're working with. All right. So the thing I want to do with this is I want to grab it and put it in my syntax file because I don't want to create this code again. I plan to only create code one at a time. Okay? That's it for me. I'm not going to I don't want to do that again. All right? So now that we've done that part, we can if I save this syntax and I don't save my data set, when I come back tomorrow, I can open my data set and my syntax and rerun this and not have to go back and recreate all that by hand, which is the reason why you use a syntax file. Okay, so we're also going to grab that frequencies bit. Now, we don't really get much of a choice in this. SPSS grabs all of that syntax, and it's not great. Okay, so the first one is SES. Okay, this is a frequency, the syntax to run frequency. And since we've recoded it, we want to run the frequency on the recoded item. Okay. So in this case, we have dem edu group. We're going to throw an RE on the end of it because that is a variable that we are now working with. That is our educ recoded item. Okay. So here I'm going to make a little note to myself. SES equals educ dem underscore edu group re, and then 1 equals less than high school, and some college. 0, actually that needs to be 0. 0 equals that, and then the 1 equals college degree and grad degree. Okay, so we've already done this part. You know what? I have accidentally put this code that I need into the comment. That is not great. So we're going to just hit enter, because SPSS can get a little fussy about where basically just kind of needing a hard enter between comments and code that you're working with. So this is what we have. We've told SPSS we want to recode this item, what the new item is going to be, and then this bit right here. Okay. Now we're just going to do, since we changed the variable name here from dem underscore edu group to dem underscore edu group re, now we just need to do a frequency on that. Okay. And so we have a little frequency distribution right there for us. Pretty great. So that is the first part. That is basically, that would essentially be figure 2. I'm sorry, yeah, figure 2. I should have done the dependent variable first, but we'll go back and grab that right now. Now, remember that I don't want to look at something that's going to have 50 lines of data on it. I don't want you to just do a frequency on a variable and then have it kind of like run down over the page. And you are probably curious about what I'm talking about right now. And essentially what it is if you were to do a frequency distribution on a dependent variable or on a variable like ft underscore t. Okay, let me show you what happens. And what you have is, so every score on ft underscore t has a bunch of people who are associated with it. Okay, so here's 0, 930 people answered 0 on this. One person answered a 14, and 4 people answered a 56. Okay, this is a very cumbersome table, and I want to look at it. All right, so for the purposes of description or frequency table, we're going to recode that. And I don't know why I'm just having such a hard time getting back to my syntax file. Okay, so we're going to basically just copy this recode item. Actually, copy this whole thing. See if we can just write it from the syntax. Okay. Now we're going to recode ft underscore t, and we're going to change that to ft underscore t re, let us know it's a recode. And then we're changing the variable label to ft underscore t. And this is the new name of the new variable. So it's ft underscore t re. Okay. Now I already have it set up so that sysmiss, if it was missing on the old variable, it's going to be missing on the new variable. But I'm going to make this just for the descriptive table. Okay. I'm going to make it into a 4-category item. All right. So 1 through 25 is going to equal 1, and then 26 through 50 is going to equal 2. And then we're going to do (51) through 75. It's going to equal 3. I'm fixing my parents. All right. 26. Okay, so 1 through 25 is 1. 26 through 50 is 2. 51 through 75 is 3. And then 76 through 100 is equal to 4. Okay, so in our original item, we have an ft underscore t it ranges from 0 to 100. And then what we're going to do with our recoded item is we're going to make it 4 categories. So instead of it being 1 through 50 over here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay. So we've got this set up, and now we can highlight it and run it. Now remember, when you do a recode, nothing's going to happen in the output window. It's just going to report the command that you executed. So in order to see if you did it right, what you got to do is you got to do this frequency command. Okay. So in this case, remember we renamed, when we recoded this variable, we named it a new variable. It's ft_re. All right. So now highlight it and run it. And here we have a recoded item. And so instead of having, 100 lines of data here, we now only have 4. Isn't that nice? It's quite lovely. Okay, so that is that. You know what? We're actually missing 0 on that. So we're going to go through that motion again and put 0. Can I rerun it? Okay. Now what happens if I redo the analysis? Bam. Nice. And so I knew that based on the original data, there should only be about 603 missing cases. And when I originally did this, I didn't include the zeros anywhere. If you note up here, there are zeros in the data set. So I need to go back and update that recode, which is what I did here when I changed this score from 1 to 0. And when I reran it, I got it all sorted out. I know that I did it right because there's 603 missing, just like there should be right here, 603 missing. All right, so essentially you would want to do this with all of your independent variables if it makes sense to do that. So for us, this is our dependent variable, ft_t. Now, when I do the analysis, I'm going to want to use the original ft_t item because it's continuous, and that will allow me to do a t-test and an f-test and a ANOVA. If I keep it as it is now, I may need to do a chi-square, and I don't want to do a chi-square. However, if I had a compelling reason to do it that way, I could certainly do it that way. It's just a matter of what do I actually want to present? What kind of story do I want to tell? All right, so for right now, we have figure 1 sorted out. That's the frequency distribution of the dependent variable. Figure 2 is sorted out. And now we need a frequency distribution of independent variable 2. So here we're going to go figure 3. And then for us, that is, let me have a look here. What was number 3? What was my hypothesis? Okay, 3 is political identification. So, figure 2. All right, so for us, that item is probably going to be PID_X. So here we're just going to copy and paste that. And we're going to have a quick little look-see at PID_X to determine if we need to recode it. _X. A lot of you will already have done a lot of you will already know that you probably need to recode something because it was one of the requirements of new project 1. But in case any of you hadn't done it, or you may have forgotten, this is how you would do it. So I did a frequency distribution on the original item PID_X. And here the original item is scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 24 are missing. I'm not entirely enthused by this political party identification item because I don't care about the difference between strong Democrat, not very strong Democrat, and independent leaning Democrat. I just don't care. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recode PID underscore X so that instead of it being 7 categories, it's only going to be 3. And then I'm going to rerun that PID underscore X item. Okay, so we're just copying and pasting that code that we originally worked on, and we're just going to change up the variables for this particular analysis we want to do. So we're going to recode PID underscore X, and we're going to have 1 through 3. So these are all Democrats. They're going to equal 1. 4 is going to equal, 4 is independent, so we're going to let that one equal itself. I'm sorry, we'll make it equal to 2. So if they were scored as an independent on the original item, they are going to be scored as a 2 in this new recoded item. And then 5s, 6, and 7, they are going to be coded as 3. Okay, and again, at the end here, you put in the new variable name that you're creating. So, you know me, I like to keep it simple. We're going to go PID underscore X, and then we're going to throw RE on the end to let us know that it's a recode of PID. And then we're going to change this bit of code here so that whenever we generate this item, it's going to put this phrase here, recode of PID X, as a title. And then we're going to put in the new variable name here, PID underscore X 3. Okay, so we're going to start by recoding, and it'll label as well. Okay, now remember, when you recode a variable, you're not going to get anything in the output window or the viewer. You basically have to do a frequency distribution on that new item so that you can see how it turned out. So we're going to copy and paste that there, throw in RE there, because that's our new variable, PID underscore X RE, and just do the analysis. All right, so now we have variable 1, we have PID underscore X, where 1s are Democrats, 2s are independents, and 3s are Republicans. All right, so that's nice. That completes the stuff that we would need for figure 3. All right, so I don't want to belabor the point. I think it's all pretty basic. You just have to go through the steps and the motions. We've done it both with the drop-down menu, and we've also done it with the syntax window. So now what we want to do is we want a descriptive statistic, I'm sorry, a crosstab of our dependent variables and some of our independent variables. So I'm going to come back to our syntax window because I like using our syntax window for kind of keeping us organized. I'm going to add figure 5 here and figure 6, I believe. Just figure 5. Yeah, so just figure 5. Figure 6 is going to be our first crosstab. And it's going to be our dependent variable and independent variable 1. So essentially, that is ft underscore t, and our first independent variable, which was SES, okay, or education in our case. So if you remember, that item was the one that we made up. We recoded this. We're going to use that guy, okay? Now, remember, with the crosstab, we're going to need to use the recoded ft underscore t item and the new education item, okay? Now, the reason for this is if we put in ft underscore t and this item, we'll have a bunch of lines of data and then additional couple of columns to coincide with education. So rather than doing that, we're just going to use recoded items. So we do that by going to Analyze, Descriptives, and then crosstabs. And in crosstabs, we will choose a variable in the row and choose a variable in the column, okay? Now, I don't have variable names here, and usually whenever you create new variables, they go to the end. So I'm going to, I scroll to the end, and there are my two variables I'm going to work with. Now, I suggest playing around with this part right here, because it doesn't really matter if you put one into the row or one into the column. What is important to me is that you don't have to have a horizontally oriented table if you can avoid it. And so what I prefer is to have sort of a vertical table. And the reason for this is that if you're working with 10 or 12 different categories of a variable that you're putting into your analysis, it's possible that you're going to have like a bunch of numbers stretch out all the way from like the left to the right. So for different statistical packages do this different ways. If you don't like the way this table looks, the way you do it, just do it again and then switch row and column. Okay, it's pretty easy. And once again, you just highlight the variable and arrow over or arrow back. So for us, let's just say we were like, oh, we don't want to use this variable. You just highlight it and then put the arrow over, and it comes over and back. All right, so like I said, we want to be doing this with education for right now. So we're going to do it this way. And what this shows us is our FT_T item, and it's crosstab with education. So what we have here is of the people who scored a 1 on our recoded FT item, 871 had lower class, and 616 had an upper class. I'm not real fond about that. You need to have percentages here. So we're going to redo that part, and we're going to ask for percentages. All right, so that was not it. We're going to click on the cells item, which will give us percentages. And we can choose, you could choose all three, like row, column, and total, or you could just choose one of those. In which one you choose depends on the kind of story that you want to tell. So if you choose row, that means that your rows will total to 100. And if you decided to go the other way, if you wanted to perhaps use column percentage, that means that your columns will total to 100. So it basically depends on the story that you want to tell. Do you want to talk about, you want to talk comparing poor people to richer people, in which case this is the way to do it. Or do you want to tell a story that is comparing people within categories of your dependent variable? So you could say among the people who had the least positive feelings for the Tea Party, 58% were classified as lower SES, and 41% were classified as upper SES. Among the people who scored FT_T between 25 and 50, 73.6% of those people were classified as lower socioeconomic status, whereas 26.4% were classified as higher socioeconomic status. Or you could go another way. You could say among the people who were classified as lower SES, 24.3% had low feelings towards the Tea Party, 48.4% scored the Tea Party between 25 and 50, 17.7% scored the Tea Party between 50 and 75, and then 9.6% scored the Tea Party as 75 to 100. So however which way you do that, kind of it should be driven by the story that you want to tell. And there's no real wrong way to do it as long as you just do it, okay? So I actually like the more vertical explanation here with the dependent variable as the row and the independent variable as a column. So I'm going to grab that second syntax that I used to generate that. I'm going to put it into my syntax file there, okay? Now the really great news is that now that I want to do the same thing for figure 7, which will be the dependent variable and independent variable 2. If you remember, that was ft underscore t re and what was it? Independent variable. Okay, so there's our dependent variable. There's this guy. I seem to have misnumbered 2. This should be figure 3. Okay. So this will be political party identification. I've misnumbered all of these guys. Okay, so PID underscore X re. Okay, now the good news is that I can just copy and paste this code. I'm going to leave the ft underscore t re because that's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change here is PID underscore X re. Okay, so I'm now able to say among the people, so PID underscore X re, 1s are Democrats, 2s are independents, and 3s are Republicans. So among Democrats, 44.2% scored the Tea Party, very low. 43.9% scored the Tea Party as a 25 to 50, because that's what we remember this being. And then, 9.2% scored the Tea Party between 50 and 75. And 2.7% scored the Tea Party as above a 75. And I'm always just sort of interested in, the percentages here. So among, so we have Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. Republicans, 23% of them scored the Tea Party very positively compared to only 2.7% of Democrats and 4.8% of Independents. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. So I would do this with all of, with a dependent variable and all of my independent variables. And that gets us the first 9 figures for mini project 2. In the next week or so, we're going to cover, actually next week or the week after, we'll cover how to do the t-test, the ANOVA, or the chi-square in SPSS, because those you may need for the last 4 figures for mini project 2. All right, that's all. I will catch you in class. Thanks for tuning in.